All right, everyone, welcome to the Ventures Podcast. As a quick reminder, in the new year here, this show, I'm dedicating many more of the episodes into a new product and code curriculum. We're running a little cohort of people, and I'm going to open up the curriculum here and share this document in the show notes for everybody. So everybody can jump in. You can jump into the Banyan DAO Discord. I'll put the links in the Discord for that. A small subset of those people have been admitted to a private cohort, but in general, this Ventures podcast and maybe some other things that will come along, like office hours, etc., will be available for you. So to kick things off, I actually spun up a curriculum doc here that really outlines what we're going to talk about in terms of product and in code. And again, if you're just listening to this podcast, I'll try to do my best to explain kind of what I'm looking at here, but for everybody else, you can watch it on video. You can visit wclittle.com, you'll see it there, or you can click on the link in the show notes directly to get to the video here for the screencast. So again, with product, we're going to cover Web 2, Web 2.5, and Web 3 in terms of understanding how to build digital products today. A lot of the code originally that we'll cover as we're learning Ruby on Rails will be more Web 2 oriented. Essentially, instead of a blockchain as your database, you'll have your own SQL database and learn how to build Web 2 applications. But then we'll start layering on things like NFTs and other ways to interact, maybe build some smart contracts that will add to kind of Web 2.5 or Web 3. This concept of Web 2.5 is for companies like OpenSea that are really their own, they have their own centralized database, but they interact with Web 3 things, with blockchain things. So that's kind of where that term Web 2.5 comes from. So I obviously won't read all this out loud as I go through the screencast here, but I'm gonna link to it, so you should definitely check this out. But I've actually written a whole article series that I'm turning into a book that's on Startup Rocket. StartupRocket.com is a tool that helps people build, scale, and grow and fund companies. So I have a whole tutorial series on the recommended way to build a tech company from soup to nuts. So a lot of the product things in here is what we'll be pulling into the curriculum and referring to from the cohort this quarter. And of course, we'll link to other resources as well and answer questions and kind of get into it as a group. So again, you can interact with us on the Banyan DAO Discord or in Slack if you're part of the cohort. And that's a way to continue here. So again, the overall frame is there's product things in terms of very specifically how, because I've done this tons and tons and tons of times, how to go about working with brand, with your overview story, with the UI spec and flow charts, and how to pick your name based on brand foundations, what you can do with language learning models like ChatGPT, and even a service here called Logo AI for how to quickly get a logo and get up and running. So basically, from a product perspective, we're going to start by just outlining this overview, give you plenty of things to watch and read to learn more about product skills in general. But you're basically going to end up with a clickable prototype in Figma as you do this. Now, I'd recommend everybody can go through this in whatever order that they want, but you're going to have an option to do it in parallel where you're going to do product things if you have your product idea and share this with the cohort, etc. Or you can just jump in and start writing code on whatever project that you come up with. And I have a couple ideas if you want just a little training project to work on. And then sometimes you'll then learn how to write code, build a quick little web app, and then you'll have an idea, and then you'll spin up a new Rails application and get after it. So as we go along this quarter, I'll talk a lot more about Web3 product things. So for now, I'll just leave you to go ahead and read this. But if you're just starting to learn to code and you have some time this week to dive into it, I really recommend this GoRails page here. If you for those who are watching the screencast here, you can choose your operating system, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Ubuntu, and you can choose which version of the operating system that you have. And it really does a good job walking through how to get your terminal set up, how to install Homebrew and Ruby, how to configure Git, and you'll go get a GitHub account and follow the instructions here to get that set up. You'll install Rails, and then the database that we're going to choose is PostgreSQL, and that's what we're ultimately going to work with as we go. And then this little tutorial will help you set up your first little Rails app, and then run Rails server, and then you can go to localhost port 3000, and you'll be up and running. So I really appreciate these GoRails folks. No need to reinvent the wheel here and make our own guide. Go ahead and leverage this resource. And once you get that up and running, then I put a bunch of tutorials here for how to get to know the command line. We're going to use Visual Studio Code. It's free. It's become industry standard for our IDE, again, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. And then I put some code, a tutorial video here for beginners, for Git. There's all kinds of more resources, and Ruby and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and core Rails things. So you can go at your own pace through any and all of this and just ask questions in either Slack or Discord. And that's essentially our framing. Now, as we go, my plan is to have some recorded office hours with people, especially as you get into it and you have some questions, so that we can help each other out as peers. I'm going to be learning some things myself. I'm just getting up to speed more on Tailwind, CSS, and just kind of, I've never really learned CSS at a more professional level because I've always worked with great front-end designers and front-end developers. So I've been more of a back-end engineer. So I'm learning alongside all of you and leveling up my own skills as well. Okay, so that's basically the setup. I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast here, the screencast. Please jump in, join us on Discord, and I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'll put those links in the show notes, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Cheers, all. All right, a couple quick things before you go. Number one, I have a general newsletter where I write about technology and startups and health science and teaching people to code. And I write about a variety of different subjects that we talk about on this show. So if you go to wclittle.com, there you'll be able to subscribe, and you'll also be able to subscribe to particular topics. If you're just interested in one or a few of them, you'll be notified right when I publish new content in those areas. Number two, my partners and I at Proto Ventures have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. If you go to startuprocket.com, there you'll be able to receive coaching guides and customize an operations framework for you and your team and your advisors to be on the same page in terms of what is the appropriate next step for you and your entrepreneurial journey. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review anywhere that you have listened to this podcast or watched this podcast, it would be super helpful to help those who might be interested in consuming this content as well. Thank you.